if we're going to go in an AI first world and everybody has access to the same frontier models and everybody's got the same tech stack and everybody's got access to compute, well, what is going to be differentiated about you? Data will be your differentiator.
Welcome to the Data and AI Chief. I'm your host, Cindy Housen. When you trust your life savings to a financial institution, you probably aren't thinking about the algorithms and data behind the scenes. But you are expecting accuracy, security, and a seamless experience. Our podcast listeners already know the hardest part isn't the AI. It's the foundation that won't crack under pressure, both technical and the organizational side. Raman Tallamraju is the Senior Director and Head of Enterprise Data Architecture and Engineering at Vanguard. With over 20 years of leading enterprise technology across 4 of the world's largest asset managers, Raman did not just adapt to the AI revolution. He's building the semantic foundation, knowledge infrastructure, and operating model to scale it safely across a financial powerhouse. In this episode, you'll learn what real AI readiness actually requires and why the semantic layer that everyone is chasing is so difficult to nail down, and how to build the organizational engine that makes it all work. Raman, welcome to the Data and AI Chief.
Cindy, thank you for such a kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Yeah, and I know that you travel the world. Where are you joining from today, Raman?
I just got back after 10 days in India, and I'm joining you today from our headquarters in Malvern, Pennsylvania.
Okay, just a little north of me. And Raman, we're going to talk about what you're doing at Vanguard, but if you look back at your career, how has your career across financial services shaped the way you're thinking about enterprise data?
So, Cindy, I'm going to take a step just before the career begins to grad school, and then we'll go through the 4 asset managers you mentioned. And in the end, I want to spend maybe 30 seconds recapping what industry research is telling us about leading companies. So just bear with me. This is going to be a little bit longer than some of our other responses. So the story starts in grad school, and I'm trying to figure out what electives I'm going to take as part of a master's program in software engineering. And just so happens that my schedule is working better if I were to take these 2 courses in database architecture from a husband and wife, Patrick and Elizabeth O'Neill, who are pioneers in building databases. And some of the research that they do shows up in some of the most advanced modern databases today. So they're the ones who actually taught me SQL and data modeling and how a database actually works within the system boundaries, right? So how is it architected within, how does it perform and scale, et cetera. And the big lesson there was, hey, if you're going to design a reliable, scalable, performant software solution, you have to start with data, right? Data can't be an afterthought. So that lesson stuck. And then my career starts, and I'm at Fidelity Investments, and I'm building some real-time trading capabilities into their equity trading solution. At that time, this is about 20 years ago, that trading solution is custom built. And Fidelity would go to market in large orders, hundreds of millions of dollars. And the traders are trying to enter the market without moving it, right? So how do you do that? Well, you have real-time market data feeds coming into the trading system. These are super low latency feeds. And you're trying to do these running real-time analytics on time windows, right? This notion of complex event processing was just starting. What we call like the real-time analytics today was just starting with companies like Streambase at that time. And you try to connect those real-time analytics, that signal or threat live, to historical analytics that you may have crunched over the entire securities market, right? So think about like price data or price movement data for every security that's traded on any large market for a number of years. That's a ton of data that you're crunching analytics on. And now in real time, you're detecting an opportunity or threat for the traders so that they can do their jobs. So that then teaches you, my God, like I was focused so much on the technology side. None of this stuff moves without reliable data. If there is a challenge with the input data systems, or the data feed's delayed, or there's a data quality issue, right? Everything rests on that. So the second lesson for me was investment management is fundamentally a data game. It's data and technology isn't just an enabler. This is how the business actually operates. So you have to be data-centric if you're going to be successful in the investments world. So that's the second lesson. The third lesson, I go to Capital Group because my wife is from Los Angeles. I was in Boston when we met, and I promised her, hey, eventually when we're thinking of starting a family, we'll take you to Los Angeles. And so we go to Capital Group American Funds. And there, instead of writing systems, I go to the distribution side of the business, which is like digital marketing, sales, call center, servicing, that kind of stuff. And there, we're bringing in SaaS solutions like CRM solutions and marketing clouds and sales enablement solutions and call center technology. And we're trying to stitch all this stuff together to deliver world-class digital experiences. And I used to call them Ferraris, right? You buy these Ferraris and you get focused on, wow, look at all this tech we have. Except, right, if you don't think about the fuel that drives these Ferraris, which is high quality, reliable single source of truth that can be modeled correctly and create things like segmentation and analytics, without that, right, you're not going to be able to activate these Ferraris and drive those hyper-personalized experiences at scale. So that's the third lesson is, hey, if you're going to start with tech and you're going to go towards the shiny toys, those are good, but without the data foundations, they're going to sit in the garage. So I started calling it the Ferraris in the garage problem, right? Unless you get the data strategy running ahead, these Ferraris are going to run out of gas. At Tiro, I lead enterprise architecture across the firm by the time I get there. And then the aha happens to be like, hey, these are all good problems. They're challenging problems around data. But what is harder than the technical aspects of data is actually the organizational aspects. It's things like ownership clarity. It's the org design. It's the operating model, right? It's governance. It's that kind of stuff that's actually harder than some of the foundations of data management that we've been focusing on thus far. And so it becomes an important lesson that companies that start to treat data as a valuable strategic asset actually start behaving very differently. The culture starts to change. The operating model has to be different. So that's the next lesson. And then towards the end of my tenure at Tiro, I start to see this AI wave coming.
Yeah.
And the recognition is, hey, enterprise architecture is really broad. I want to go deeper in data because I see that data is such a foundation for AI. So I start to think about a role that goes super deep into data and tries to do data strategy architecture across an entire enterprise. And that's how the connection with Vanguard gets made. And so in the role there, it's the insight that if we're going to go in an AI-first world and everybody has access to the same frontier models and everybody's got the same tech stack and everybody's got access to compute, well, what is going to be differentiated about you? And my pitch to Vanguard and to the industry is data will be your differentiator, and the companies that bring the best data game are going to have enduring advantages over those that don't.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like a key lesson from each chapter of your career. And maybe just to confirm a couple things. Well, also, so yeah, going way back, an Oracle DBA. I did not learn from, the builders. I learned from EF Kodge. That maybe that counts a little bit,
Yeah.
but perhaps not as good as yours. And even laying token ring cables. So how, like, what is the architecture? My brain just kind of works this way. But I also think it's important that you bring the business value, the business lens to it. So it's not just from a back end viewpoint, it also is from why does this really matter from a business lens? Do you agree?
Absolutely. And so that's a great nudge to sort of touch upon that industry research I was talking about, right? So when we look at industry research from academia or strategy consultant partners, right? The industry research is saying the companies that are able to invest in AI and see a tangible benefit to their financial statements are doing a few things consistently. The first is they are thinking of data as a strategic asset. And we can talk a little bit about what does that mean? What are the behaviors that go with that kind of a mindset? The second is they invest in building a unified, integrated data platform. The third is they push decision-making autonomy downwards, and they enable real-time decisioning.
Which is part of the culture, I think.
Right.
Do you allow leadership at every level, or is it, no, I need 7 approvals before I get anything done?
That's right.
And the other point you brought up, though, just to give an industry survey data point, I believe it was BCG, Boston Consulting Group, who has confirmed that 70% of the effort around getting the value out of AI, it is the people and operating model around that, which is part of pushing the decision making there. And I think most companies really like to just slap AI on something, some new shiny toy, because that is so much easier than the hard work of the platform and the people change.
Thanks for touching on that operating model lesson, right? It's a key insight, is that these leading companies also follow a shared responsibility operating model, right? The business doesn't just say, hey, data is a technology thing, they're going to figure it out. The business actively engages along with data and technology as a team sport. There's clear accountability and understanding of how everybody's got their roles and how they're going to drive maturity. So that component, along with a balanced investment portfolio that says, hey, we're going to go after these tactical wins, but we're also going to invest in some long-term foundational elements that are going to ensure that, for years to come, we're going to have sustained benefits from that investment, that foundational capability set.
So now, Raman, you and I reconnected shortly after we published the episode on semantic layers and ontologies. And I know that you interact with some of the same experts, but I want to go back in time and just say, so let's say 10 years ago in your career, could you imagine that the investments in semantic layers and ontologies at that point in time would have mattered as much as they do now? What's changed?
For about 20 years now, I feel like we've known what the right thing to do is, right?
Huh.
Right? We've known, if you're a data practitioner, you knew the importance of data modeling. You knew the importance of a common or controlled vocabulary. You understood the benefits of having a taxonomy and a classification. That you knew that it wasn't just about the relationships, but there were rules associated with the relationships that had to be modeled so that the behavior of the systems, right, the data is trying to model the entire business, right, is congruent to how the business would be operating. So we've known these things, except we've never prioritized them, right? We've always thought of them as nice to have. It would be great to have some of this stuff, so we'll try our best with a little bit of investment. But if a competing thing comes up, we're going to prioritize that over this, and we're just going to kick this can down. Because we had a way around it, Cindy, which was we could just, as humans, we could collaborate and figure it out, right?
So tribal knowledge.
Tribal knowledge, you just swivel your chair, ask your friend, you make a phone call, right? Hey, this column that I'm looking at, right? Do you understand what this is saying? I think it says this, but I think I may be wrong. Could you clarify? This kind of human-led collaboration was a way to sort of work around the lack of the strong foundation in semantic modeling and ontology building. But then here comes AI. And we all get excited about these autonomous agents. And we want these autonomous agents to be acting very similar to or consistent with a human who would interact in that environment. Well, they don't have the benefit of engaging with this kind of fuzziness and just collaborating and thinking through the way humans would problem solve. And so there then we start to see the penalty of not having the semantic modeling and the ontology and some of these foundational stuff. So I think it's been a forcing function to say, catch up now, your technical debt in the lack of the foundations in semantic modeling and ontology building and some of the foundational work. And so what do you find today? Everybody's talking about semantics. Everybody's talking about semantic layer. I didn't know so many people knew what the word ontology meant, but everybody's talking about ontologies. Everybody's looking to hire these people like context engineers and ontologists and semantic experts. So it's great to see the world catch up, but you and I have known this for a while.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you, though, on one point that you said that everyone knows that good data modeling is required. And we've known that for a while. I think there's a whole generation that skipped data modeling. And I'm totally going to blame the state of technology at that point in time. A lot of the visual-based data discovery tools said, oh, just load it into in-memory. You don't need to model it. And we got into a series of one-offs. And I would say a 10-year generation of data analysts that they don't have a clue what good modeling is. Am I being too harsh here, or what do you think?
No, I think you're right on the money here. There is I talked about the 20-year story. So if you started 20 years ago as a data professional, you knew all these things to do. But if you started maybe 10 years ago and you were sort of thinking about the DevOps way of doing things, and you had the benefit of cloud computing, you could kind of say, who needs modeling, right? We're just going to throw it in a key value store. And we're just going to solve the things that the foundations were supposed to solve by just throwing compute at the problem.
Yeah.
And so a whole generation sort of walked away from the fundamentals. And if in some of these large enterprises, if you go back and go, when did you last have a strong data modeling muscle? It's about 10 years ago. And it starts to then wane. Except now here comes AI, and now everybody's trying to strengthen that muscle again, right?
Yes. So for some, it's strengthen the muscle. For others, it's like get any kind of muscle.
It's rebuild the muscle.
Yes, rebuild the muscle. And so I do want to be clear, like we've talked about, we've thrown some words out there, semantics, ontologies, context, and we did have a dedicated episode parsing the definitions of each of those. Give me your take on can you buy versus build a good context layer? What are your thoughts?
So funny thing is, you referenced we know of a few people common, and I think I was talking to Jessica Talisman, and she was like, Raman, I'm not aware, and I hope I'm not misquoting her, but at least this is my perspective. I won't attribute it to her, is that while everybody's talking about context, I don't think we've all agreed on what the definition of context means. So here's mine, right? And tell me if you agree with this. So my definition of context is it doesn't matter if it's a human-to-human interaction, human-to-computer interaction, machine-to-machine interaction. When two parties are interacting, what information do you align on to ensure that you understand each other's intention clearly, so clarity, and that the actions you take are reliable and expected? That thing, that information sharing, we call context. And it makes all the difference, right? So I'll give you an example that I used because speaking of Jessica, myself, Prukalpa were on stage at Vanguard's internal tech conference called Unlimited, and we did a fireside chat. We titled it, "Is Your Agent Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?" Without context.
Oh, great title.
Right. Without context, likely not. And I told a story just to make it come alive for the audience. I said, I have a 13-year-old son. He takes our 2-year-old dog, Odie, for a walk. And he comes back home after a long walk and says to his friends, "Hey, Odie is cooked." They all understand he's talking about Odie's tired. And that's what I mean, right? When you have a shared vocabulary, when you have the information exchange, you have context. And so something like Odie is cooked, right, has the right connotation versus a horrible one. And so that's why context is so important, and ever more important, because humans, like, even when we're like, did you really mean that? Because I'm getting this from you. We can go back and forth like this. But an agent, an AI, could just take the wrong context and take an action on it. Or give you a confident answer, and then you base the action based on that insight. And that's why context is so important.
Hi, data and AI friends. We are at a generational shift. Some might even say a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. To capitalize on this opportunity, you need more than just great technology. You need a mindset shift. That's why I'm proud to say that ThoughtSpot sponsors this podcast. Go from raw data to trusted insights and action with ThoughtSpot Agentic Analytics, a platform powered by a suite of specialized AI agents. It's why companies like Cisco, Lyft, T-Mobile, Sephora, and Schneider Electric count on ThoughtSpot. See what the future of analytics looks like at thoughtspot.com. So an example I might give could be a role, somebody's role.
Yeah.
When a CFO refers to revenue, it's based on GAAP accounting principles. When a CRO or a salesperson refers to revenue, it might be based on their pipeline or orders. Give us an example from financial services.
Yeah, so a simple example could be you say, how many clients do you have? And or how many customers do you have? And you very quickly start getting into, well, what if a client had an account with us but has had a zero balance for the last 10 years, haven't interacted with us, haven't done a transaction with us? Are they still a client? What about a lead and a prospect? Are they a client? This is where the fuzziness comes in. And that's why it's so important to get these definitions nailed down and everybody agreeing. When we say lead, this is what we mean. When we say prospect, this is what we mean. When we say client, this is what we mean. We say customer, this is what we mean. And this is harder than you think.
Yeah, and maybe to give our listeners an idea of the size of the problem, there was a survey recently published, sponsored by VentureBeat, that found that enterprises got 57% wrong answers, confidently wrong answers, because of bad context. So the tribal knowledge days are gone. The agentic AI era is here, or how quickly companies can benefit from the AI era. So as part of this at Vanguard, you have created a program called AI Ready Data Tell us a little bit more about this program.
Yeah, the recognition, Cindy, that success with AI investments could be much stronger if we had AI-ready data was the motivation for creating this entire program. And the concept is, what is the difference between strong foundations in data versus AI-ready data? And I'd say they're overlapping constructs. Some of the foundations you and I have been talking about, they apply still. But then on top of it, there are a few characteristics. You want your data to be well-defined. You want your data to be trusted. You want your data to be well-connected. You want your data to be contextualized. You want your data to be consumed in a multimodal way. And you want it to be ready for humans and machines at scale. And when you look for all these characteristics across an entire data estate, you start to realize, oh wow, our data estate isn't ready for the ambition of reimagining every product, every service, every process with AI at its heart. We can try and get a few use cases done without that strong foundation. But what ends up happening is you try brute forcing that problem, right? You throw a lot of people at the problem, you throw technology and compute at the problem, sometimes you throw time and money at the problem, right? And you're not getting the success rates, the full scaled effect of AI because your data substrate isn't ready for that. And so that was the genesis of the AI Ready Data program.
Okay, so it sounds like a critical program, but it also sounds ambitious. So where did you start, or what would you advise listeners? How do they start on this journey?
So my advice is always start with, and you said it well, you said, hey, though all those foundations are great, but always focus on business value. Right? Mm-hmm. Don't forget that focus on business value. So always start with a business use case. You hear the term points of economic leverage, right? What are the points of economic leverage in your business that are connected to a prioritized business strategy? And if you can find a use case where having the high quality data, AI ready data, along with some of those components that we've been talking about really makes a big difference in client outcomes or customer outcomes, then you've got a great starting point. So start there. And in our case, one of those first programs that I engaged when I first started at Vanguard is the hyper personalization platform, the Hyper-P effort. And just being part of the team and observing how we're solving for bringing together all of this data from various data sources, right? Feeding that into predictive models, personalizing the experience, providing next best action, and then having the outcomes tracked and feeding that back into the model and watching what happens cycle after cycle in a self-learning, continuously improving model really brought to light how much effort it takes to do something like that and how the next part of the story and the part after that could be much stronger, much more accelerated if we had some of those AI-ready data foundations we've been talking about.
So part of this or related to this is the whole discipline of knowledge management. How does this come into play?
We said everybody's super excited about semantic layer, and everybody wants to build these knowledge graphs and start hooking up their agents to not just the RAG calls, but the graph RAG calls, right? And the vector stores and all that cool tech. But behind a knowledge graph that works at scale is an ontology. And so ontology, what does that do? It sort of clarifies the relationship between the entities. It ties in with the rules by which and the constraints by which your business operates.
So let's get specific here. So this could be customer related to fund active customer related to can have one or more investments in a fund.
Yeah.
Make it a little more real for listeners.
Yeah. So you could say, hey, if the region is Australia, here's the rules we have to follow in that region. And if the region is America, these are the rules. These are the constraints. We're allowed to do this in one region. We're not allowed to do that in another region. So these are examples of how a business like Vanguard would operate depending on geography. Well, who understands all of these rules?
You might have it documented in some employee handbooks,
right.
Pages, wikis, what have you. But this is really the operating code for Vanguard or for any business. And this is why you can't buy it.
You can't buy
it.
And Cindy, you'd probably agree that most of the institutional knowledge still sits within people's heads. And some of it is written down, but it's not written down in a standardized way. It's scattered in Word documents and PowerPoints and different knowledge repositories. This is the challenge. So now you want to train these agents to behave consistent with a human expert. Well, you have to solve for knowledge management. You have to get all that institutional knowledge translated into the controlled vocabularies, the taxonomies, classify data consistently, build the ontology with those rules, and now you have the semantic layer. So that's why when somebody says, oh, just throw tech at it or just buy the semantic layer, I'm like, good luck with that.
Yes, but Raman, I'm thinking, all right, your boss or somebody on the leadership team is saying, we need to go faster. This is an existential threat. And what you're describing is kind of like, let's go off for a few months, pick everyone's brains and look at documentation, and then we might come back with something usable. The reaction's not going to be that great. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's why in that point about what is industry research telling us about what leading companies are doing, that balanced investment profile of like tactical value delivery while also investing in the long-term foundations, that's the balance that this thing needs, right? So of course, I'm not going to go and stop somebody who wants to build a knowledge graph and starts to build a cool semantic layer and try to hook some agents to it. But I'll tell them this, right? Hey, if you had knowledge management strategy and some of these components in place, and then you did some of this, your returns are going to be stronger. The progress you're going to make is going to be more durable. The effort is going to scale better. So sure, go after tactical business delivery right now, but in parallel, also don't forget that we need to make these long-term investments and solve for things like knowledge management and ontology building if we really want to scale AI across all aspects of our business.
Yeah, I think the operative word you used was in parallel. So have these two speeds, use case that might be tactical. You're just building the ontology and context layer for that use case, but you're architecting it for a truly autonomous agentic AI-powered enterprise. One of the architectural decisions facing every organization is companies would like to have one semantic layer to rule them all. What you're smiling. Go ahead, comment.
I admire the ambition, and and I can understand where that's coming from, right? Wouldn't it be clean if there was one semantic layer across a global enterprise like Vanguard? And I'll parse it. I'll parse the prompt into two questions, actually. One is, yes, the semantic layer. Can that be unified across a large global enterprise like Vanguard? But the second question is, what about the database platform? Like everybody talks about this integrated, unified data platform. Can you actually have that level of unification across a large, complex global organization? And my thought is because these business units and the various parts of the organization have to prioritize their outcomes. They have very specific domains in which they operate, and they have specialized ways of doing things. When you start modeling data along those domains and you start to create these knowledge to ontology components we've been talking about and start to enable that semantic layer, you may start to get semantic layer components in one dimension or one domain, but not necessarily everywhere consistently at the same time. This was the tension you were just describing. Like, are you going to wait 3 years and build a perfect semantic layer and then you're going to start to deliver value through AI? No, we're going to start to do both of them simultaneously. So what I feel is a more pragmatic goal is stitching together and connecting these semantic layers in sort of a hybrid operating model of some degree of consistency with federation, right? So what can you do in terms of consistent technology, consistent best practices, and playbooks by which you operate, but have the flexibility that there may be different paces at which the groups are going to move, and that's okay. And the same thing for the data platform, right? If you've been investing heavily in data technology for the last 10 years, and here comes the modern platform on the side, I'm not going to force march you all just to get on the modern, right? I got to figure out a way where some of this existing investments can work really well together with the modern. And so that's where, when you look for consistency, I look for things like a unified catalog or a single control plane, more than I look for everybody must be force marched into one beautiful integrated data platform.
Yeah, so I think, again, an operative word is unified rather than single or one. And then the stitching together. So if you think about, and this probably gets into your operating model and organizational model. So you are allowing federation, which probably also accounts for that you have different levels of maturity in each of your business units and your tech components. So take us through how you make it so that it's still unified and not chaotic, that you have so many different definitions per each federated arm.
Yeah, and this is where I'm a fan of the data mesh operating principles, right? The work that Zhamak Dehghani and team did back when at ThoughtWorks, that was seminal work, because that said, hey, this, like, for the last 20 years, we've been trying to unify all this stuff together in a centralized platform or an approach, and it hasn't worked. A more pragmatic way is to operate in a more decentralized operating model. And she talks about how this is like a techno-social concept. It's more an operating model than it is a technology.
Yeah, but some people, pundits, they can be quite mean. They were like, slamming her for, what is this word, techno-social? And yet it's very valid.
It absolutely is, because that goes to the heart of, well, how do you operate in that federated way? How can you be decentralized and yet have consistency and unification? And there lies the trick, right? So if you are modeling your business along these data domains and you start to clarify business ownership at the various levels of the data domain, and then you start to go, okay, those are the responsibilities of the business owner, but there's also data stewards who act on behalf of the owners. Then there are data product managers whose job it is to create those crown jewel. We talked about those tangible strategic assets. That's what data products are. Right? They're expensive to create world-class data products, and so you got to be very careful where you expend that energy and how you manage that. If everything is a data product, nothing is a data product, right? So you got to have that kind of product mindset. And then there's the role of technology and platform, and all of those things have to come together, along with how do you make decisions, how do you govern. And so when you start thinking about that data operating model for the firm, now you got everybody aligned on a North Star and starting to move consistently. Now, they may say we're aligned with the North Star, we're aligned with the architecture, we are aligned with some of these ideas, but we're going to take a different pace by which we want to operate. And I think that's totally okay, right? We just want to make sure that decisions are being made consistently and the operating model remains.
And how did you get the business to take co-ownership of this?
So that's the work we're currently engaged in, Cindy. So ask me again in 6 months. And I'll have a better answer. But right now, we're in the midst of let's get the domain definitions consistently defined, and let's start to engage with the business and explain what this new data operating model is, what their role is, and what the benefits of them engaging in all this would be. But there's sort of 4 components in how we're getting support for this entire program, right? The first component is you talk about the potential opportunity cost. We talked about, hey, we're spending heavily in AI. Could the returns be stronger? Yes, if the data foundation was AI ready. So you have to articulate the opportunity cost. The second, you have to sort of show them the productivity gains that are possible when the substrate is strong. Right? So rather than an analyst calling 3 other analysts and going, I think this is this, what do you think? Or I'm looking for this data source, where do you think I should go? If all that gets compressed in an integrated world-class data platform, now suddenly people are seeing force multiplication, right? So they're much more productive. So that's the second component. The third component is articulate the risk, right? So what is the damage to the brand and to the client experience when we can't be trusting the data coming our way? And then finally, literacy goes a long way. So invest in educating the executives on both the business, data, and technology side. So we invested in a partnership with MIT. All the senior leaders at Vanguard went and did an executive program there. And it helps when a neutral third party, an expert party tells you, hey, all this, the keys to your AI ambition are actually built on the world-class data substrate, and you need to be engaged. You can't just look to your partners in tech and data to solve it. You have an active role to play. And by the way, the companies that are successful have a unified data platform, are trying to do real-time decisioning, et cetera, et cetera. That goes a long way.
Yeah, so it is that alignment, repetition of the value, both the opportunity cost, the risk, and AI literacy for everyone. Raman, we've covered so much ground here. We'll switch to a fun, lighthearted lightning round. When you're not immersed in the world of semantic layers, data foundation, what's a hobby that has absolutely nothing to do with data?
Well, if you hadn't said absolutely nothing to do, I would have said I'm spending a lot of time vibe coding, and it's become like almost a hobby these days because it's so much fun to just create something from the ground up. But something completely unrelated to tech would be I'm an avid reader, but recently beyond the reading, my 13-year-old son Noah that we talked about earlier, he's showing an interest in golf. So we're trying to spend some time on the course, and it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's always a fun hobby when you can do it with family members as well. What about a low-tech thing that you still insist on doing the old-fashioned way?
Meeting people face to face, having lunch together, breaking bread, like I said, writing handwritten notes. There's something to that personal touch that so far AI hasn't cracked for me, Cindy, but I'll let you know if it does, right? It feels different to receive something written on paper by a human. And I feel like that touch is precious, and we got to preserve it.
I agree. You'll get a handwritten note from me following the podcast. But given that you're an avid reader, have you read the book The Correspondent by Virginia Evans?
I have not.
Okay. It's all about handwritten notes. I will share a link following the podcast recording.
I love it.
So how about a podcast or maybe an expert that you follow that has significantly influenced your thinking?
Clay Christensen from MIT, his book, Innovator's Dilemma, was such a big aha for me because I see this cycle happening over and over in every industry, but I've seen this in financial services as well, right? The little upstart who's innovative, that takes risks, bold decisions. Vanguard is such a successful company today, but 50 years ago, we were a small upstart. And the founder took some bold decisions, right? Some very unconventional thinking that has led to this phenomenal story and so many lives touched in such a great way. And then the risk is, right, we start to get complacent and we lose that innovation DNA that got us here. And so I'm glad to see that we're here and now we're saying, okay, what does the next chapter look like? And how can we go back to those roots of innovation? So that's one I would definitely recommend our listeners.
Yeah, definitely. His work is timeless, really. So you can choose the last question, Raman. Either what are you most grateful for, maybe beyond the obvious of health and family, or an accomplishment from recent weeks that you're particularly proud of?
So in this case, I can give you an answer that has both those elements, Cindy. So I told you I just came back 10 days in India, and that was because there was some family medical stuff going on. But in the middle of that trip, I was able to take 3 days, and my other kid, my 19-year-old daughter, is actually traveling in India, and take her to the two big cities, Mumbai and Goa, and just show her what city life feels like. And the time together was wonderful. And so being able to pull that trip off in 10 days and get that mix and be able to record this today, I'm proud of that.
Yeah. Wow. Raman, well, thank you for making the time today. And I hope the family situation is fine. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for being on the Data and AI Chief.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, listeners, you've heard it from Raman. It's the data foundation. You cannot outsource the hard work of the semantic layer, the context layer, your ontology, and bring knowledge management practices to this. Architect big, but start small, scale fast. If you enjoyed this conversation, please rate or like it from your favorite podcast platform. And if you would like more inspiration or thought leadership, then follow me on LinkedIn, Substack, or visit thedataandaichief.com.